Guitar Solo Countdown.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 2 of Jimmy Wolf's Guitar Solo Countdown. In this episode, we're going to look at Ozzy Osbourne's solo career and the 3 main guitar players that played alongside Ozzy: Randy Rhodes, Jakey Lee, and Zakk Wylde. Okay, so Ozzy's main contribution to music was the band before his solo career, and that is Black Sabbath. He formed Sabbath in 1969 in Birmingham, England. So while Ozzy was with Black Sabbath, they managed to record 8 studio records. All of them are fantastic. But I think endless touring, problems with the business, and tons of drugs, the band was starting to fall apart, and Ozzy was the first one to be kicked out. So in the late 70s, Ozzy was left with no band, and it seemed like that was probably going to be the end of his career. But with the help of his family and friends, Ozzy was able to get a band together. The band was called the Blizzard of Oz, but later the band decided to change the Blizzard of Oz to the name of the record, and the band would simply just be Ozzy Osbourne. So the first guitar player that Ozzy recruited was Randy Rhodes, who was from the band Quiet Riot. Randy had a really unique sound. Sometimes he would double and triple track his guitar solos, which just gave it a really wild, almost out of control sound, but it was really cutting edge and neoclassical at the same time. Unfortunately, Randy died in a freak flyby accident, so he was only able to record 2 records with Ozzy. But Randy was replaced by a very underrated guitar player named Jakey Lee, who recorded 2 records with the band. Jakey Lee left the band, and the third guitar player to join was a guy named Zakk Wylde, and he's been playing on and off with Ozzy ever since. There's been other guitar players that have come in and out of Ozzy's band, but these 3 guitar players, in my opinion, are the 3 most important, and they've really defined Ozzy's greatest moments. Okay, so let's take a look at the top 5 guitar solos of Ozzy's solo career.
Number 5. Number 4. Number 3. Number 2.
Okay, so No More Tears. Yeah, that wasn't hard to rate that one as number one. I love this solo. I remember seeing it on Much Music in Canada quite a while ago, and I just remember loving it. I love that middle section, that breakdown, Magical Mystery Tour, Beatlesy sounding section, and I just love how Zakk's guitar just comes out of that. You know, it's like this sort of chaos section of emotion where the girl in the video is quite literally drowning in her tears. And the solo kind of rises out of that drowning chaos as a beacon of hope, or, I don't know, a beacon of light or strength. It's very cool. And then, yeah, it just goes into a really awesome blues rock solo, which is awesome. And then has a great build-up near the end where it just gets faster and faster and higher. That's a really common technique used in guitar solos, is when you play a lick that just gets higher and faster, so it just builds in intensity until the end. Okay, so let's check out Ozzy's discography. The first album is a classic. It established Ozzy's solo career. It was also one of the forerunners of the modern metal movement. It features Randy Rhodes, and it also has probably one of the best-known metal songs of all time, Crazy Train. Yeah, you still hear it at football and baseball games. I mean, it's massive. My personal favorite song off this album is Suicide Solution. Okay, so the second album, Diary of a Madman, continues the success of the first album. There's definitely no sophomore slump here. This is a great album as well. I could definitely listen to these two albums back to back and get the feeling that it is the same record. Okay, so the next album, Bark at the Moon, is my personal favorite Ozzy album. I think it's more confident production-wise. I think the songs are a little more confident too. Unfortunately, this doesn't feature Randy, but I think Jakey Lee does a great job here. I also love the trend of Ozzy dressing up like a monster on the album covers. Yeah, I mean, especially being a young kid and seeing a monster on an album cover, I mean, it's just so cool. Okay, so the next album was called The Ultimate Sin. There's a little bit of a quality dip here. The album was produced by Ron Nevison, who did a lot of 80s records at the time. I think the common criticism here is that it sounds a little sterile. There's still some amazing songs on this record, though, like Killer of Giants and Shot in the Dark. Now, the next record was about the same quality. Ozzy's energy was better here. You could tell that the band was just more excited, and there was a lot more energy in general on this record. It was also the first album to feature Zakk Wylde, who is my favorite guitar player of Ozzy's career. So when the 90s came around, there was a definite quality boost, and you could hear that on the next record called No More Tears. There was a lot of hits off this record. The album did very well. The production was a lot more confident. I also really liked Ozzy's revamped image here. He sort of played this very authentic, sober, grown-up rock star. Aerosmith would do the same thing. They would just play themselves, and they would be more of a legendary band that the younger bands would like to look up to. And his next record, Osmosis, I think was just as good. This album was the best album that Ozzy could have released at the time, because I know a lot of bands were just getting decimated by the new grunge movement, and Ozzy did a really good job of weathering that storm. There's a lot of ballads on this record, and it kind of has a Black Sabbath meets Beatles vibe to it, but I love it. Great record. So now we get into a very weird period of recorded music history. The internet was taking over. You could go online and download music and bypass going to the record store. So, you know, it's almost like records were starting to become irrelevant at this point. And I think this album had that feeling. I remember I didn't really care about it when it came out. But listening to it now, it is a good record. Also, at this point, Ozzy's celebrity status was massive from his TV show, The Osbournes. So he didn't even really need to release any more records, but I'm really glad that he did. The next album is a covers record, and it actually is the first album in a few decades to not feature Zakk Wylde. It actually features Jerry Cantrell from Alice in Chains, and I think he does a great job. It's kind of hit or miss. There's half of it I love, the other half I could leave. Now, the next two records are a little confusing for me. When I first heard them, I absolutely loved them. The production is stellar. It's Kevin Churko, who's a great engineer producer who worked with Mutt Lange. So I've got no problems with the production, but I sometimes feel that Ozzy gets a little glossed over. It's almost like you could insert any other singer This is also a good subject to bring up. You know, did modern Pro Tools computer technology destroy the soul of rock and roll? I don't know. Yes and no, maybe. It's sort of a gray area. There's a great video on YouTube by Rick Beato that discusses this. Okay, so this brings us to Ozzy's last studio record called Ordinary Man. I like this album a little more than the last two because I feel Ozzy's personality is coming through here more. It sounds like he's having a lot of fun. You know, there's a lot of sort of outtakes that are left in the songs. He's laughing a lot. The songs are a little more funny, jokey. This sort of feels like the 80s Ozzy more, where he's just having more fun and just being himself and being goofy. The only thing I don't like about this album is the last song. It feels like a Post Malone song featuring Ozzy. You know, I don't really want to hear Post Malone when I put on an Ozzy record. You know, the style doesn't mix, and I don't know, it just feels like a cheap attempt to cross-market. But besides that, I think all the other songs are fantastic. Okay, so that brings us to the end of Ozzy's discography. I had a blast revisiting these records, and what I did notice was that there aren't really any stinkers here. A lot of bands, huge bands, always seem to have a really bad record, but there's no bad records here. It's great. Ozzy's incredibly consistent. Okay, so thanks for joining me. Next episode, we're going to look at Mick Mars from Motley Crue. Okay, see you next time.